Hi, everyone. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Bhamini Lakshminarayan, a true visionary in the world of game design and storytelling. Bhamini is the co-founder and head of design at BigFatPhoenix, where she leads the creation of incredible narrative-driven games like the Fairside Stories series aimed at young audiences. With a passion for creating meaningful and impactful gaming experience, Bhamini's work truly sits at the intersection of entertainment, education, and social change. We're excited to delve into her insights on the gaming industry, her creative process, and her advice for aspiring game designers. Welcome, Bhamini.
Hi, Deepak. Thank you for those kind words, and thank you for having me here. It's exciting to get to be in a room with folks who also love games. And yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. So I'm just going to start with some questions on gaming trends. The gaming industry is constantly evolving. What are some current trends that excite you, and how do you see them shaping the future of game design?
So I love that this is the first question because the industry is changing so fast right now. It's faster than any one person can keep up with it. There are so many new and interesting things coming out the door every day. Personally, what's of great interest to me is generative AI and the potential that it's going to have in changing the way that games are built. As a designer, that excites me. And as a player, it excites me as changing the way that I experience the game, because it has the potential to make games more adaptive to players' own locations, experiences, choices, the way that characters respond to their actions. There's so much we can do that we don't even know yet. So that's a very exciting space to watch. There's, of course, augmented reality, virtual reality games that are changing the way that stories are experienced altogether by making them more immersive, by making them more visceral, because you are actually in the situations where you're experiencing those things. There are, in my opinion, one of the most exciting things is there's this trend of increasing diversification in the industry that is both in the people who are entering the industry, the people who are making games, but also the kinds of games that are being made. Because we realize that everyone from my 89-year-old grandmother down to my 2-year-old niece is playing video games. And one is in Hyderabad, the other one is in San Francisco, but I mean, they're all playing video games. And every person wants a video game that can appeal to them, that can speak to them. So there is this amazing potential to make games that you relate to, which I think particularly as a person of color, as an Indian, is an exciting prospect, because it wasn't something that I experienced when I was growing up. So these, I would say, are the three most interesting trends that are happening right now in the world of games that I would keep an eye on.
Okay, great. Many young people are passionate about gaming, but haven't considered it as a career path. What advice would you give to someone who enjoys playing games and wants to explore the creative side of the industry?
I love that so many young people want to play games and make games because they love playing games. That's how all of us got here. If you don't like playing games, please don't become a game designer, because it shouldn't just be, it can't be just one of those jobs where you mark time. You have to enjoy it, because if you aren't enjoying yourself, you can't create enjoyable experiences for other people. So enjoying games is definitely the first step. But it isn't everything. Like you rightly said, you need to take several steps to actually be in the industry, right? A lot of people, lay people, will have great opinions on games, but as gamers, they can't really look behind the curtain and see how that sausage is made. So I would suggest, if you're interested in being a part of the industry, the first thing that somebody should do is put some time into trying to understand what goes into making a game. If somebody is watching this conversation we're having, they're already doing that. So that's great. Go out, find resources, watch some YouTube videos, watch, where they do breakdowns of games, find old talks, find articles on Medium and other blogs, and look at the games that you love playing already and see if people have talked about how those games were made. If looking at the nuts and bolts of that whole thing is exciting to you, then you should move on to making games by yourself, not in an institution necessarily. But before you even decide, hey, I want to study games, you should know you want to study it. So I would say you're not making high fidelity games. You're not trying to make something that can make money and go out on Steam and, get monetized. You want to be making pen and paper games. You want to be making games on PowerPoint, on Excel, using whatever the lowest effort medium is for you. Try and make a couple of experiences that are interactive. And if you still like it after that, then you're ready. Because a lot of times we overcommit to things that seem like great ideas. Ask me, I studied economics as an undergrad, and now I'm making video games. So once you know that it's really something that you can see yourself enjoying, even when it becomes work, that's when you know that you're ready to be in the industry. And that's when you start looking for courses that can teach you skills that you might need to use to be a part of it. And if you're a little bit older, then maybe think about how the skills you already have can translate to the industry if you want to enter it.
That's great advice. Now, the next step, I imagine, is that parents tend to worry about digital design being an unconventional career choice. Could you address the growth potential and real-world applications of digital design careers beyond just the gaming industry?
Now, that's a great point, because I think, especially in our country, because there are just so many people, it's a very valid concern to have that you need to have an education or the desire for a career in a field that has long-term futures, and that has the potential for growth and sustainable careers. Most people don't have the privilege to go out there and say, I don't care what happens, I'm just going to follow my dreams. So I think it's very valid for parents to have that concern, especially as I grow older. I understand it. I don't think I understood it as much when I was young. Having actually worked now for a while and seen how the market can be, I don't think 18-year-old Bhamini would like this, but I think I understand the parents' concern. I know why they're doing their research. But I want to say to any parents or anyone who's trying to convince their parents that the application of a career, of training and a skill set in digital design goes well beyond just what you consider games. It's not just Candy Crush. It's not just Call of Duty or Teen Pati. The same skill set that you learn in digital design can be applied across any technical product that you're building, whether that is the latest version of Windows or an Uber app. The same thought processes of digital design can apply to design in other spaces as well. Because ultimately, design is really about understanding a problem and finding the right way to arrive at a solution by understanding the people who will be interacting with that problem. So it's really about understanding people, and it's about understanding how to make things that work for them. You could use that same skill set in supply chain management. If you are able to understand the core of those skills and not just, I can use this software to copy paste the exact same game that someone else has made. If you actually understand the core of the skill sets, it will serve you well anywhere. The same way that parents tell us, hey, you know what, study science till class 12, because it helps you to think about the world a certain way. It makes you analytical. It helps you to break things down and be process oriented. Design makes you think of the world from the perspective of understanding people and taking a user-first approach to problems, or a player-first approach to problems. And since it's digital design, well, the possibilities are endless because the entire world is being digitized anyway. So it is the direction of the future that you want to be going in.
Okay, great. Great insights. The other question I want to ask you is, when evaluating potential candidates for your team, do you place more importance on formal education and degrees, or strong portfolio showcasing their skills and experience?
So my formal education is in economics. I studied economics at St. Stephen's College in Delhi, which is supposed to be one of the best colleges for economics, but that was not my calling in life. So then I went on and studied media and cultural studies at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Bombay. Neither of these are games. But what I did alongside those degrees was build entertainment, build board games, build actual tangible materials that could then show that, hey, even though I don't have a formal training in this space, I have this interest, inclination to follow through on it. It's otherwise you don't know whether someone is just sending out an application to every single job opening that's out there, which is a fair thing to do if you're young and you just need to find a job.
Right.
But I don't know then why you're sending me your application. So it's very important to have that body of work. Even if you do come from a school of design, there are some that are more theoretical, I should say, than practical. And if your understanding is entirely theoretical, I will still need to see the practical component of something that you built in your portfolio to know that you're not just critiquing design, but you're capable of building design. Which is why I think some of the courses, like the ones that you guys have, are really good, because they're giving kids, or they're giving people, because you can learn at any age, they're giving people the ability to build out their portfolios while they're learning skills. It's very hands-on. So that's the kind of stuff that we look for. It's what have you done? That then, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be right.
Right.
You just have to see that you're committed to doing it. So
Right.
so long answer short, portfolios are very important.
Okay, perfect. For a young person aiming to earn significant income, like say 1 crore a year, through game design, what steps would you recommend they take to acquire the necessary skills and knowledge required?
Well, that's a great question. I think all of us want that answer. But I would say the best advice that was ever given to me was professionally, was from my great uncle. He's about 80 something right now. And he was a mechanical engineer who got into computers just at the right time because he had a ear to the ground. In the 80s, he got into computers, and that's how he built his entire career as an expert, because he knew things before people knew you had to know them. So if there's someone who wants to build a lucrative career for themselves, I would say keep your ear to the ground, keep your eye on the trends. Don't think about what is important today. Think about what will be important 4 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, and make sure that you're building skills in that area as well. A lot of the time, especially when we have a job, we get lost in the daily grind. So we don't make the time to upskill ourselves while, we're doing our everyday work. My advice to anybody in any stage of life would be forward-looking and learn the skills before you need the skills. So by the time it arrives, you're already an expert.
All right, that's fantastic advice. Now on to industry insights. The Indian gaming industry is experiencing significant growth. What are some of the key trends and opportunities you see emerging in this market?
It's never been more exciting than to be someone in the Indian games industry or connected to the Indian games industry, because it is growing so phenomenally at this point of time. We are the market that everybody all over the world is looking at. And honestly, even within the country, everybody is talking about games. Everybody is playing games. India right now is the single largest market in the world for mobile games in terms of downloads. India has, I think, the second largest pool of gamers in the world in general. I think the proportion of women gamers as compared to male gamers is steadily climbing. Earlier, I think it was 1 in 5 women play video games. Now it's something like almost 45% of all games played in India are played by women, because we're making more types of games and we're making games accessible. In India, games are growing outside of your traditional PC console spaces. India is really a mobile first market, which is amazing because it's coinciding with this enormous boom in internet technology and mobile technology that's going into tier 2, tier 3 rural areas in the country. So in India, what we're seeing is more gamers of different backgrounds and ages, more games in vernaculars and on themes that are relevant to people who grew up in this country and who live in this country. They're not foreign concepts that you have to really work hard at understanding sometimes. The narratives sometimes are things you can't relate to. I know, again, we grew up in games were not made in India for Indians. So, we know that you have to make the effort to understand and interpret a lot. But these days, you get to make games that you want to play as an Indian game designer. And that's very, very exciting. So to give you an example, this year at the Game Developer Conference, the Game Developer Conference is the world's largest conference for video games. And it happens every year in San Francisco. It's about 5 days and tens of thousands of people show up. It's overwhelming. This year, for the first time ever, there was an India pavilion at GDC, which is a specific area of the conference floor that was cordoned off for Indian game developers to showcase their games. And if you saw the crowds that were there, it is so exciting and heartening to see it. If there was ever a good time to be in games in India, it is now.
What are some of your favorite games or game studios that inspire you?
Well, as a game designer, I can take any game, and even if I don't enjoy the game, I will find things that I enjoy about it and go deep and obsess over it for like 2 weeks at a time. But if I had to pick studios that consistently knock it out of the park, I think my top 3 would be first, Inkle Studios. Inkle Studios is UK based, and they're constantly pushing the understanding of how narratives work in games. I love a good story. So they can do text-based stories. They can do games which are platformers with musical elements, but are actually storytelling. They do murder, but they do go back to King Arthur, but it's a tile-based, turn-based combat game. If you haven't played games by Inkle and you're interested in games, go play them. And if John Ingold is listening, please get in touch with me. The second studio that always knocks it out of the park is Supergiant Games. Anyone who is in the universe of games will be familiar with Hades, Bastion, Transistor. These are top-class games built by a small studio. And what makes them fantastic is the amount of heart that goes into building them, because they really go deep in everything that they're building. And they're pushing the boundaries of conventional form and format. Yes, it is action-based, roguelike with procedurally generated levels. But Hades is also a story about relationships, and it has decoration game elements. They're pushing the boundaries of what you expect in a game. And I'm really excited for Hades 2 coming out later this year. And the third studio feels like a bit of a cheat to say this because it's so large, but Nintendo, because of the vibe of their games, what Nintendo does is it doesn't gatekeep. It doesn't have the entry barrier to games, because the games look pleasant, they look cheerful, enjoyable. People who are traditionally intimidated by games find Nintendo games approachable, even though they're extremely hardcore games. When you actually play them, the treatment of the games is cheerful and appeals to the childlike innocence in people at any age group. So people who've never played games in their life, like my dad, will play Mario with me because, it just looks like an easier game than it is. He doesn't know how difficult it is.
Okay, great. Now on to areas for succeeding in the field. So beyond technical skills, what personal qualities or attributes do you believe are crucial for success in the game design and development field?
I'm glad that you asked this, because I think, especially again, as Indians, we focus a lot on our technical skills. It's an area that we're comfortable leaning into. It's an area we're encouraged to do from a very young age through the school system. And we don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about our social skills, our communication skills, and our attitude. And in our design teams, the teams that I get to cultivate, what is at the top of the list is having a positive attitude with a growth mindset. Because if you are a designer, what I mean by that is if you are a designer, if I give you feedback and you don't take feedback constructively, it is difficult to have you on my team. Because design is fundamentally about iteration. You do something, somebody says, this is not working, you go back and you do it again 100 times, and you never take it personally. So you need to be able to leave that ego at the door. You need to think about building towards whatever that final product is. Your skills might be amazing, but we might need to give you feedback so that you can build this particular product and develop your skills for this product. And you need to be open to that kind of feedback. And sometimes people are not, regardless of their age. I've worked with folks who have been in the industry for decades, and they find it difficult to receive feedback without getting defensive, without getting, upset about it.
Right.
So the ability to take feedback, which requires the ability to have a growth mindset, is the most important thing. If you have that, you are always open to learn. And if you are always open to learn, whatever the technical skill is that you need at that point of time, I can trust you to put in the work to learn it.
Right, right. Great. How do you stay updated on the latest trends and technologies in game design?
Well, I play a lot of games. I'm always looking for whatever's coming out. I keep a ear to the ground again with what people are talking about via, Twitch, YouTube, Reddit, all of the social media platforms that are out there. I keep track of what other people are talking about. I talk to actual people. This is one thing that I would encourage anybody who is in the industry or aspiring to be a part of the industry to do, is just message people. Like find them on LinkedIn and send them a message saying, I like your work, or I'm trying to understand this. Could you tell me more? Because the thing is, most of us were just dying for an opportunity to talk about games. So we would be happy to have that conversation with you. And, you really just have to stay on top. If you're going to think about games as a career from a business side as well, you're just going to have to stay on top of politics. You're going to have to stay on top of laws and all of those trends as well.
Right, right.
Not everyone's cup of tea. I prefer staying on top of the creative side of things, but these are skills that you might want to cultivate depending on what area you're interested in going into.
All right. If you could invent a new game genre, what would it be, and what gameplay mechanics would it involve?
Well, that would be giving it away, right? I think rather than inventing a new game genre, I would love to make games the way Supergiant makes games. I spoke about Supergiant games earlier because Supergiant games, it doesn't restrict itself to the conventional ideas of its dominant genre. So it will take great ideas from other spaces because they fit into the overarching larger story that they're building. The same is true of Inker, where what they're doing is they're building fantastic games by reinterpreting what is conventional. You could still count Hades as a roguelike game, but it has so many other elements that go into it. I think what excites me is the potential to reinterpret the conventional. For example, one of the games that we designed, which is available on Fairside Stories, is a turn-based combat game. A turn-based combat game is, for anyone listening, when you take turns, you and the enemy take turns using your powerful combat moves in order to bring each other's health to 0. And usually there's like a larger storyline around it. But what we did in this game was we made it a turn-based combat game, but where the style of combat that you're doing is through empathy. It's through thoughtfulness, it's through action, kindness. So you're not flinging grenades at each other, you're smiling, or you're asking questions, because this is a very conventional genre. It's only thematically the layer on top of it that we were playing around with it. And when you do that, the emotional experience is entirely different. So I think that's the space that really excites me.
Okay, and now for some advice for students. For students passionate about entering the gaming industry, what educational paths or courses would you recommend they consider?
So I think there's that, I think that the way that you make games, the skills that you bring to games are the intersection of everything that you know. It is your formal training, it is your life experiences, it's whatever you're playing at that point of time or reading or watching. So in one sense, you can't go wrong. But I would recommend that people who are interested in going into games build some technical skills so that, like we talked about earlier, they can build up those portfolios that show that they are committed to building things in this space. So design, when you're thinking about design, again, it's about the thought process that goes into design. You might want to use the tools that are currently being used and talked about in your domain of design. So, what could have been Adobe 10 years ago, now you're going to want to learn Figma. So you want to keep on top of what is being used right now. Go look at job descriptions for the kinds of roles that you would like to aspire towards having. Look at the skill sets that they require and ask yourself if you can meet those skill sets. And if there is, usually it'll be a technical skill that you are lacking. In that case, seek out a course, whether it's part-time or whether it's a longer term course that can give you that kind of exposure. I myself, I'm a big fan of an actual university environment because I think the conversations that you have with people outside the classroom are just as valuable as the conversations that the teacher is having with you in a classroom. So if you can find yourself an actual physical location to go to, there's nothing like it.
Great. Now, building a strong portfolio is crucial for aspiring game designers. And what advice would you give to students on showcasing their skills and creativity?
I would say that if students are trying to build out their portfolio, the first thing that they need to let go of is perfectionism. Because when I look at a portfolio, I am not necessarily looking at, is this a product that I can put out there as it is right now and make money off it? What I'm thinking about is what is the intentionality and what is the thought process that went into building out this product. So when students are building out their portfolios, they'll want to be thinking about what best displays the skills that they are most proud of and document their design decisions as they go through the process. Because when you put your portfolio, when you put your projects online on some website to show off your portfolio, you want to document, this is the way I thought about things. This is why I made these decisions. Because the hows and the whys for most people will be more important, especially at an early stage of your career, than the exact finished product. Maybe you use the wrong font. That's okay. We care about the thought process that led you to using that font. So I think intentionality is everything in design.
Okay. Are there any specific resources, communities, or events that you would recommend for students looking to connect with industry professionals and learn more about game design?
So there is a lot of online community around games. If you want to watch people play games, go on Twitch. If you want to learn about game design, there are infinite resources about design on YouTube. You can just go into YouTube and look for game design tutorials or game design breakdowns. Look for the game that you're playing right now and go put in Baldur's Gate 3 design and see what people are saying about it. You're guaranteed to find people talking about it and breaking it down for you. Reddit has a lot of sub-communities, again, where people are talking about design, but take Reddit with a hint of salt. It's a space where you can have conversations, but not every opinion is informed. I think very valuable is getting in touch with other creators in India, like actually knowing people who are making games. If you have the privilege and fortune to go to GDC, Game Developer Conference in San Francisco, go for it. But what is more relevant, I think, for most people in India would be the Indian Game Developer Conference. It happens every year in November in Hyderabad. I would say make sure that you go for the Indian Game Developer Conference. Go for talks that interest you. Talk to everyone you see, randomly walk up to strangers. Because this is where you will find your people. This is where you will make those connections who later you can reach out to and say, hey, we met at the water cooler at ITDC. Do you think you could tell me more about what it's like working for Zynga or whichever company it is? So make sure that you go for conferences. Even if you think that the talks are not interesting, go to meet the people.
Right, right. Great. And one final question. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice about pursuing a career in games, what would it be?
I think if I had to give myself advice, it would be, don't worry about it. Because a lot of the concern is, will I be able to make a career out of it? What are the steps that I need to take? How do I figure it out? Valid concerns. But I think that as long as you're doing something where you're learning and you are generating value for yourself, and you are looking forward to what you can build next. Even if you're doing something you don't like at that exact moment in time, it's okay, you're learning something. And even if you're, worried about, I'm making only this much money this year, how am I going to survive? Stick to it. Don't worry about it. Because if you really are committed to this space, if you stick with it long enough, your expertise will begin to shine through. And right now, especially if you get in on the ground right now, you have the opportunity to become that expert. So I would say just take that leap, and it's going to be serving you well. The skills and the way of thinking that you learn is going to be serving you well no matter what path you end up taking in life. And education is not just about immediate transference from university to making $1 billion. It's about what are the skills I learn along the way, who is the human being I become along the way. And I think that learning to make games, think about human experience, think about what makes people happy, think about how you optimize for getting people to come back to something again and again. That will serve you well, both as a game designer, a digital designer, and in your life overall. So.
Well, thank you so much, Bhamini. It's a pleasure. Thanks for taking the time to join us. And you've shared some really valuable insights. Really appreciate it. And I think many potential students will also benefit from what you've been able to share with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoy this conversation and I'm excited. I think your students are doing some great work. I've had a chance to look at some of it. There's some beautiful artwork behind you that I absolutely love. I wish I had been as fortunate as to be able to study games back when I was a student. That wasn't an option at the time. It's exciting to me that people are able to do this now. So just people who are listening to this, do it for me. Go study games for me because I can live vicariously through you that way.
All right. Thank you so much, Bhamini.
Thank you.